Black belt spars with black janitor. What was exposed next will leave you inspired and speechless. Terrence T-Bone Matthews stood in the flickering fluorescent light of the community college gym, the scent of sweat and aging mats overwhelming him. A black belt in martial arts, he had once dreamed of glory, but the harsh realities of life had tethered him to the ground. As the janitor, he scrubbed floors and emptied trash, his aspirations lingering on the periphery, dimming with each lonely night spent sweeping classrooms. At 26, T-Bone's heart raced with a mix of hope and despair with the regional martial arts tournament approaching, yet the financial strain on his mother working 3 jobs constantly gnawed at him. Did pursuing his dream mean risking everything she worked for? He practiced his punches, his movements sharp yet burdened by uncertainty. Each kick echoed in the hollow space reminding him of the legends that had fueled his passion as a kid, fighters who turned dreams into reality. But what was he? Just a janitor cleaning the remnants of others' success in a town that didn't see him. His mother's smile in his mind juxtaposed against the judgment of peers clawed at his spirit. He didn't just have to fight to win, he had to conquer their expectations and his own self-doubt. Just then, Mr. Jenkins shuffled in, an elder janitor with an endless well of wisdom and an unexpected enthusiasm for martial arts history. "I see you, T-Bone," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "You got the fire. Don't let it go cold." Mr. Jenkins's words ignited a flicker of hope. But then came the familiar weight of reality. Was it fair to believe in himself when he could barely afford the entry fee? Every pang in his gut screamed his limitations, taunting him like his high school classmates who whispered behind his back, making him the punchline. As the tournament buzzed through town, whispers surfaced about its reputation, about fighters who were stifled by biases, their talents eclipsed by financial status. T-Bone realized that his fight was more than personal, it was against a system that thrived on inequality. The anger surged within him, as he ruminated over the faces of those who were silenced. How could he enter a ring knowing it might favor the rich and leave his brothers and sisters behind? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Anxiety tightened in his chest as the competition loomed closer, the pressure deadening his resolve. The night before, he stared at the picture of his mother. Her proud smile now felt like a heavy blanket smothering him in guilt. What if he failed? What if his dreams shattered and left her with even less? The hum of silence around him only amplified his thoughts, a cacophony of "you can't" and "you shouldn't." T-Bone felt torn, caught in the crossfire of ambition and dreams drenched in reality. As dawn broke, casting shadows across the town, the anticipation hung thick in the air. Flashes of excitement from the townsfolk reverberated in his mind. And there he was, ready to step onto the mat against an elite opponent, heart pounding as the weight of expectations pressed down on his shoulders. Would this be his moment to shine, or would he succumb to the injustices that seemed insurmountable? Each movement he made felt like defiance against the tide of doubt. As he prepared to face what lay ahead, one truth loomed larger than ever: this fight was about more than winning, it was about challenging the very foundations that held him back. The day of the tournament arrived with an electric atmosphere that buzzed through the small town, yet T-Bone felt anchored to the ground. The gymnasium hummed with energy as competitors warmed up, their confidence radiating as brightly as their medals. Yet, as T-Bone stood at the edge of the mat, a sea of doubt crashed over him. Did he truly belong in this arena, among fighters who had never faced the struggles he endured? He closed his eyes for a brief moment, taking in the sounds around him: the thud of feet on the mat, the crackle of commentators huddled in the corner. This was more than just a competition, it was a test of character, a critical juncture that blurred the lines between ambition and obligation. A familiar tightness tightened its grip around his chest, but amidst the chaos of anxiety, a flicker of determination ignited inside. "Just breathe," he whispered to himself, the act almost ritualistic. He remembered Mr. Jenkins's words, how the old man's belief in him felt like a life raft in a stormy sea. Don't let it go cold. Would feeling discouraged extinct the fire he so desperately needed? No. He would not let fear dictate this moment. As he stepped onto the mat, adrenaline surged through him, slicing through the fog of self-doubt. The audience, a collage of familiar faces, watched from the sidelines. Their hopes and whispers seemed to intertwine with his flaring aspirations. The ring marked the battleground of not only physical strength but also the resilience of spirit. T-Bone faced his competitor, a well-trained sensation, whose very title echoed through the gym, a reminder of the privilege he had fought against in his mind. The match commenced, and T-Bone forced himself to focus. Each punch he threw tested his tenacity against the expert responses of his opponent. In the spectrum of strikes and blocks, he felt a strange sense of liberation. The blend of fear and strategy pushed him into a rhythm, as if the dance of competition honed his mind like a finely tuned blade. With every redirected attack, he became less of a janitor and more a warrior. But old insecurities simmered beneath the surface. What if he lost? What would that mean for his dreams, now stirring with new life? Central in his mind was his mother, tirelessly working to put food on their table, and the thought molded his resolve sharper. Each time he connected a kick, he kicked against the weight of expectations that bogged him down. Each dodge and we felt like empowerment against societal judgment. The crowd's cheers merged with his heartbeat, but soon, in a critical moment, he faltered. A swift strike caught him offline, and he stumbled, the breath escaping his lungs. Pain flared in his side, pressing memories of all the times he had been underestimated. That familiar voice echoed, taunting him, "You're just a janitor. This isn't for you." In that moment of vulnerability, clarity washed over him. No one was pushing him into this ring but himself. Lingering doubts fought side by side with his obsessions of being greater than expectations. No longer would he cower beneath the weight of social constraints. Fighting was not just physical, it was a declaration of self-worth, rippling silently through every fiber of his being. With renewed strength, he straightened up, eyes narrowing on his opponent. The fight within him rekindled, becoming a fierce flame that pushed shadows aside. How could he reach for victory if he settled for mediocrity? As he launched into his next move, a sudden realization ignited within. What he truly feared wasn't the fight or the judgment, it was the failure to believe in himself. As the match reached its climax, T-Bone became a blend of force and finesse, driven by purpose. What happened next would determine more than just a victory, it would test his evolution into who he was meant to be. Would he rise above the judgment or crumble under the weight of expectations? The outcome lay in the balance. With each swing, each evasive turn, in that fierce exchange, he suddenly discovered something critical about himself. Strength ran deeper than skill. With that revelation pulsing through him, he could feel the whispers of destiny calling. It was more than just a competition, it was a moment waiting to transform him forever. With determination set in his veins, he prepared for the pivotal crescendo of the match, ready to confront the conclusion of his journey and the awakening of a deeper truth. What lay beyond this victory remained uncertain, but as T-Bone rallied for his final moves, he knew one thing: the moment of truth was drawing near, and he would seize it. The moment arrived, a swift pivot, a sharp jab thrown with newfound focus. T-Bone felt adrenaline ripple through him as he leaped back into the fight. Every muscle tensed, every inch of his being echoed an internal battle he emerged from, stronger and fiercer. The familiar face of his competitor twisted into a surprised grimace. This wasn't just a clash of bodies, it was a clash of beliefs. Fight for every moment. T-Bone's internal mantra roared louder than the crowd. As he ducked under a spinning kick, he knew now that each indentation he bore as a janitor, the late nights, the scrubbing down of floors, the sweat, had been preparation for this very instant. He had held on to his labor with pride, and now that commitment flowed into each movement. He refused to let those hours drain him, they had sculpted him into this relentless fighter. As a counterstrike connected, he could feel the energy of those he fought for surge through him: his mother, Mr. Jenkins, even the children who looked up to him. Would they recognize him as more than a janitor when the dust settled? Would they see him become everything they had whispered he could be? Each blow he exchanged with his opponent now felt less like a desperate match and more like a declaration. They were a testament to transformation. Mid-match, T-Bone realized he wasn't performing for the audience or even his opponent but for himself to reclaim the narrative of his existence. Each jab and weave rewrote the sentiment, a janitor could take a rightful place in the ring of champions. With every encounter, punching through the noise of dismissal in his past, he burst forth, dodging fleeting doubt and retaliating with purpose, yet, hidden in the back of his mind was the haunting vulnerability he had uncovered earlier. It bubbled to the surface: self-doubt, that nagging friend who, despite being dismissed, had settled deeper into his psyche. What if he succeeded, and this was only the beginning of a long fight against cynicism? Was he ready to risk everything for the faint possibility of success, knowing failure might become his label? He brushed off the thought, unwilling to entertain the shadows. Why feed a fear that fed on insecurity? Instead, he forged on, pushing the negative whispers out with loud, clear strikes. Forget what others perceived him to be. This was T-Bone, the fighter, the warrior, the embodiment of relentless pursuit. Then came an unexpected opportunity, the chance to deliver the final blow. In a calculated movement, he feigned left, prompting his opponent to guard against a strong right. But that's when T-Bone spun, unleashing an unseen kick that collided with precision. Time suspended, breaths were held. The force reverberated through the mat, echoing a glimmer of impending finality. What happened next would demand courage on every level. The referee moved in, raising his hand, but not before he caught sight of T-Bone's trembling form. In that heartbeat, the noise around him vanished. He was aware of the narrow gap between reality and aspiration. Victory hung precariously in the air, but just as quickly as it presented itself, another thought slipped in: what if winning wasn't the true battle? What if the real journey lay in navigating the aftermath? With eyes locked onto his opponent, T-Bone faced a stark reality. Regardless of the outcome, he had emerged transformed, yet uncertain of his next path. Each indication from the crowd felt electric, yet somehow disorienting. Who was he now, standing in the light of their expectations? Would he celebrate a victory he wasn't sure he had earned, or choose to grapple with the very sense of self he had fought to define? The decision consumed him, swirling with a dangerous allure. T-Bone stood on the precipice of more than just a title. He was confronted with the turbulence of identity itself. As the referee's decision echoed through the gym, a singular truth crystallized within him. His next step would not only decide his place on that mat but his role in the world he inhabited. What lay beyond that pivotal moment would reveal just how deep his resilience could go. The journey had only begun, and T-Bone was about to test his strength once more. The roar of the crowd faded as T-Bone's heart raced with more than just adrenaline. It rattled with questions, doubts that flared like wildfire, creating a perfect storm within him. The moment the referee raised his hand, sealing victory, he felt adrift in a sea of emotions: elation, relief, and yet, an unsettling vulnerability lingered. With the cheers echoing in his ears, he understood that celebration was far too simple for this moment. It was merely the beginning of something he hadn't fully grasped yet. Stepping off the mat, T-Bone caught glimpses of familiar faces around him, his mother's eyes shimmering with pride, Mr. Jenkins nodding with approval. But behind those looks, behind their smiles, lay another layer of scrutiny. Were they viewing him as a new champion or as someone who merely stumbled into success? Did winning this match truly redefine him, or was it a mask hiding deeper insecurities? The gym buzzed with voices dissecting the match, yet T-Bone found himself drowning out the noise, retreating into his mind. Should he revel in the victory or question its validity? He replayed the final moments of the match, running through each hit, each dodge, picturing the trajectory of his kicks. Did he earn that victory with skill, or was it a fluke, the product of chance? A wave of discomfort surged within, as though he were balancing on a tightrope stretched over an abyss of self-doubt. As he gathered his belongings, preparing to leave the gym, the weight on his shoulders grew heavier. This wasn't just the end of a match, it was the precursor to a more daunting battle, one against his own psyche. He stepped outside, the cool air colliding with his flushed face, grounding him in reality. He was back to being T-Bone, not just a fighter but a janitor once again, clutching at the remnants of a narrative reshaped but still in flux. Navigating this new identity felt like walking through a fog. Clarity was elusive yet tantalizingly close. If he was now a fighter, how would he tackle the lingering fears that clawed at his confidence? What was the path ahead? Each step toward the parking lot felt heavy with unspoken questions. Would his life as a janitor dim now that he had tasted victory in the ring? The duality of his existence weighed heavily, like two sides of a coin, one shining and victorious while the other faded, grounded in daily toil. That he took a deep breath, determination flickered to life within him. He would confront these thoughts. He needed to. T-Bone vowed to forge a new path, one that embraced both fighter's spirit and the dignity of hard work. But even with this resolve, the voice of self-doubt crept in, whispering reminders of past failures, urging him to be careful, to retreat into familiar confines. It would be so easy to let the fear of exposure shut him down, but he was not willing to return to the shadows. The impending darkness of uncertainty pushed him. He needed to expose the truth of his struggle and evolution, to face each doubt head-on rather than evading them hidden behind facade of victory. He felt the thrill of resolve igniting him. His journey was not just about winning or losing but understanding every layer of himself. On the cusp of fully embracing this new version of himself, T-Bone paused. The next steps were forming in his mind, but he sensed obstacles ahead, moments that would test his grit and ideals. The true battle awaited, and it loomed larger than any opponent he had faced yet. He realized that the next phase would demand not just physical strength but an unwavering commitment to personal growth. With each determined step toward his car, T-Bone felt the door to doubt begin to crack open, revealing a flicker of potential waiting to be explored. What lay beyond that door was yet unknown, but he could sense it, the opportunity to confront those shadows and emerge even stronger. The looming challenge was less about competition and more about the intricate dance of self-discovery. Would he embrace the fight within himself to redefine who he was meant to be? As he slid into the driver's seat, breath held tight in anticipation, one truth resonated: the hardest battles are often fought within. Would he rise and seize the opportunity, or would the whispers of doubt drown him once more? T-Bone knew it was time to find out. The engine purred to life as T-Bone navigated the street, the city unfolding around him, bustling yet indifferent. With each stoplight, the void of doubt inside him pulsed like a heartbeat, reminding him of the uncertainty that lingered beyond the recent victory. He drove in silence, lost in thought, the weight of his past and the promise of his future colliding in a chaotic symphony. Returning home was akin to re-entering the arena, familiar yet daunting. T-Bone parked outside his modest apartment, the peeling paint and flickering lights a testament to the struggles layered within. He stepped inside, the scent of the place immediately enveloping him, tugging at the corners of nostalgia and regret. Surroundings that once felt mundane now anchored him to a reality he wrestled with. As he locked the door behind him, the shift occurred. He was no longer stepping out into the world of a janitor. He was stepping into the reflection of all he had achieved and all he wished to become. That he made his way to the small mirror in the bathroom, hesitating before meeting his own gaze. What stared back was a visage marked by triumph but tinged with uncertainty. The recent win was a validation of his skill, yet the echo of his prior life clung to him like a shadow. As the minutes ticked by, he sensed the dichotomy of his identity, fighter versus janitor, wrestling within him. Which would emerge victorious? Determined to take control, he stepped onto the little patch of empty space in the living room and began shadowboxing, his fists slicing through the air with deliberate precision. Each punch was an affirmation, a way of confronting the burdens that had long held him down. There was no referee here, no crowd to witness his performance, only himself and the desire for growth. Each jab unleashed frustration, each cross expanded his resolve. He was reclaiming the power that had slipped from his fingers far too often, but even in motion, T-Bone was not alone. The gnawing voice of self-doubt echoed stronger. What if the victory had been a one-time fluke? What if he failed to replicate that success? The fear was palpable, creeping into his mind like smoke. In that moment, he realized the need for more than just physical training. He required mental fortitude. His heart raced as he acknowledged the truth: what lay ahead was fraught with challenges, far beyond the ring. Training alone would not be sufficient. He needed a mentor, someone to guide him through the labyrinth of his psyche. The thought sent him digging into his memory. Who could he turn to? He recalled Mr. Jenkins, a fixture in his life, with years of wisdom behind him. Reaching for his phone, T-Bone hesitated. A moment of vulnerability held him back, but it was now or never. He needed to connect with someone who could challenge him to confront the deeper layers of his identity. With a deep breath, he tapped out a message inviting Mr. Jenkins for coffee to discuss not just fighting but the broader spectrum of discipline, resilience, and personal transformation. As he hit send, he felt a surge of courage. Opening a dialogue was a step away from isolation, a move towards growth. This intention ignited new light within him. The path was shifting from one of solitary struggle to a journey framed by mentorship and discovery, but before he could embrace this newfound resolve, the phone buzzed. The name flashed before his eyes, a text from his opponent, a call to rematch. Tension radiated through him as he read the message. The challenge lingered there, weighty with implications. Would he seize the opportunity to prove himself again or shy away, allowing past fear to dictate his response? The stakes felt different this time, intensifying the duality of his journey. In that split second, T-Bone knew this decision would resonate beyond the ring. It would shape how he viewed himself, whether as a champion or a fraud. And more importantly, it would determine if he had truly grown or if he was still wrestling with the shadows of self-doubt. The time had come to make a choice that would carve the path forward. What lay ahead was the real test of his evolution. Would he stand firm and embrace the fight, or would he allow the echoes of insecurity to reclaim his narrative? The line between growth and retreat was drawn, and T-Bone needed to decide where he stood. T-Bone's heart thundered against his ribcage as he sat on the edge of his bed, the glow from his phone lingering like a bright beacon of uncertainty. The message from his opponent was more than a simple rematch offer, it was a test of his resolve, a catalyst for transformation. He could feel the stakes rise, not just for the fight but for his evolving self-image. The fighter he wanted to be stood at odds with the doubts still lurking in the corners of his mind. He took a breath, attempting to unearth the 8-year-old boy who had first stepped into the ring with fire in his eyes. But now, that fire met a semblance of clarity, a flame with ambition yet tempered by the hard lessons of reality. He forced himself to think through the implications of accepting the rematch. How could he harness the fear that clawed at him? It wouldn't simply be about, it would be a declaration of his growth. While he wrestled with that decision, his mind wandered back to Mr. Jenkins. The man had always offered wisdom that transcended the physical confines of fighting. T-Bone recalled trips to the local gym, conversations about resilience that took place amid the smell of sweat and ambition. Life wasn't just about the punches one could throw, it was about standing tall after being knocked down. He realized he needed that conversation to ground himself before stepping back into the ring. The decision crystallized in his mind: he would accept the rematch, but only after meeting with Mr. Jenkins. That plan felt like a bridge over turbulent waters, connecting his current self with the version of him that was unwavering and keenly aware of his strengths. He stood up, energy coursing through him like adrenaline. The weight of doubt began to lift. Deciding to leave the apartment, he grabbed his jacket, ready to confront whatever was on the other side of this endeavor. He'd reach out, he'd blend the physical with the mental, bringing the lessons learned in the gym into the vast battleground of life outside it. As he walked through the city, a familiar rhythm took hold of him. The streets, every crack in the sidewalk, every skipped beat of a pedestrian's heart felt connected to his own. The surroundings mirrored the reality he was forging. He could visualize success as clearly as the twinkling lights of the skyline before him. The notion of challenge expanded beyond the ring, echoing into every choice he made. Arriving at the cafe, T-Bone glanced around, nervous energy bringing quickened breaths. He spotted Mr. Jenkins in the corner, a distinguished figure who seemed to carry the weight of the world with measured ease. "Hey, Mr. J." T-Bone called out, the excitement in his voice belying the tension he felt. As he approached, the man looked up, greeting him with a warm smile that felt like an anchor. "Good to see you, T-Bone. I've been waiting to hear about your journey," he replied, gesturing to the seat across from him. As they settled into a comfortable rhythm of conversation, T-Bone couldn't help but feel the mounting pressure of the decision that lay ahead. He needed guidance, a critical perspective to inform his next fight. But as the discussions evolved from past victories to present challenges, he realized the depth of his journey wasn't solely about the rematch. It was about mastering his internal conflicts to understand who he was and who he was capable of becoming. With each anecdote shared, T-Bone felt the pieces of his identity starting to align. But just as the discussion blossomed into profound insights, he paused, confronted with a revelation that had not yet arisen. What if there was more to be learned from his past losses than he had ever acknowledged? This question lingered, heavy in the air, demanding exploration. The tension in him coiled tighter, preparing him for a confrontation not just with his opponent but with the ghosts of his past, whispering their truths in his ear. As he prepared to share this fleeting thought with Mr. Jenkins, the door swung open, and in strolled an unexpected figure, the very opponent who had sent the rematch. Invitation. This was more than just an encounter, it was the beginning of a revelation that would force T-Bone to confront everything he believed to be true about himself. T-Bone's breath caught in his throat as his gaze locked onto the familiar figure walking through the cafe door. It wasn't just his opponent standing there, it was a manifestation of everything he had evaded since that fateful loss. Jason, the fighter who had bested him, was once the epitome of what T-Bone aspired to overcome. Each step Jason took toward the counter felt like a countdown, and the cacophony of voices faded into a low hum around him. "Do you know him?" Mr. Jenkins asked, perceptive as always. T-Bone nodded, a lump in his throat. The sight of Jason stirred a tempest within him, a clash of emotion that threatened to spill over into the composed exterior he was striving to maintain. "I don't know if I want to," T-Bone finally responded, his voice barely rising above a whisper. He was embarrassed, yet he was also compelled to understand. The conversation with Mr. Jenkins morphed into a crucible, he was being pressed to confront not just Jason, but the lingering shadows of his failures. "Face him," Mr. Jenkins encouraged, eyes glimmering with a mix of understanding and firmness. "You'll learn more about yourself than you expect." With a deep breath, T-Bone stood. Each stride toward Jason felt loaded with purpose, equal parts determination and dread. Memories of the last match played through his mind, paired with the echoes of the self-doubt that flooded in afterward. "Hey, Jason," T-Bone said, his voice steady, but the adrenaline coursed through him like an electric shock. Jason turned, surprise flickering across his features before he adopted a smug grin. "T-Bone. Didn't T expect to see you here? Thought you'd be training after that message I sent." The confidence dripped off Jason like sweat after a grueling fight, unbothered, almost mocking. "Actually, I came here to confront some past demons." T-Bone reclaimed his ground, the words flowing more easily than he had anticipated. His heart still raced, but there was no retreat in his demeanor. Jason raised an eyebrow. "Demons? You mean the ones I handed you in the ring?" T-Bone clenched his jaw. It stung, yet it fueled a fire he hadn't acknowledged was simmering beneath his skin. "I came to learn from them," he asserted, conscious of Mr. Jenkins gazing at him from a distance, nurturing the strength he was slowly reclaiming. "Good luck with that." Jason casually slipped into a booth, his bravado infectious yet frustrating. T-Bone paused, teetering between the urge to lash out and the desire to understand. "Why did you fight me that way?" T-Bone found the courage to ask, his breath shallow but his conviction rising. "Everyone says I could have won if I'd done things differently." Jason's expression shifted. For a moment, he looked less like a taunter and more like a peer, wrestling with an unexpected memory. "You weren't ready. I saw it. You were still searching for something inside. But you've got to realize, being in the ring isn't about proving everyone wrong, it's about proving yourself right." "Right," T-Bone echoed, trying to digest Jason's words. There was wisdom buried beneath the bravado, an unexpected layer he hadn't anticipated. It sparked a flicker of insight. What if the path to growth lay not only in facing Jason but in embracing the very essence of defeat? "Yet here I am, ready for a rematch," T-Bone pressed, feeling emboldened. "I'm not afraid anymore." Then fight me first, Jason challenged, his gaze piercing. A ripple of incredulity coursed through T-Bone. Not in a ring, but here. Let's talk fight strategy. I'll teach you what I see. You'll learn the lessons I gathered from our last bout. Behind them, Mr. Jenkins nodded subtly, approving of the tense yet constructive confrontation. It wasn't quite what T-Bone envisioned. Next steps were unclear, but here was an opportunity to lay bare his ambitions directly before his adversary. Would he rise to the challenge not just in brawn but in mind, forging resilience from confrontation? T-Bone leaned into this unexpected alliance, heart hammering, ready not just to confront Jason, but to rediscover the fighter in him amidst the challenges of the past. Yet before he could dive deeper into this exchange, he realized that the stakes were higher than he understood and that this session could either redefine his trajectory or drown him in the very fears he sought to conquer. What lay ahead was a path laden with discoveries, but would they be enough to propel him into the rematch prepared and assured? T-Bone shifted in his seat, the weight of Jason's challenge lingering like a freshly lit fuse. The cafe buzzed around them, oblivious to the charged atmosphere enveloping their booth as he contemplated the offer. What did he truly have to learn? Engaging in this conversation felt like stepping into the ring again, but instead of fists flying, it was his thoughts and emotions that were ready to clash. He realized Jason wasn't just a rival, he was a mirror reflecting T-Bone's deepest insecurities and ambitions. If he was ever to conquer his past failure, he needed to absorb every piece of wisdom Jason was willing to share. "All right," T-Bone replied, his voice firmer than before. "Let's talk strategy. But what if I'm still not ready? What if I fail again?" Jason leaned back, arms crossed, the smug grin edged with something deeper, perhaps a hint of respect. "That's exactly it. You need to understand what failure means. It's not the end, it's a teacher. Every punch I threw is a message you need to decode." T-Bone absorbed this, recalling the frantic moments of that last fight, the flurry, the chaos, the sense of helplessness that had engulfed him. So what did I miss? What was I searching for? "You missed the zone. It's about being in the moment, not just reacting," Jason explained, his eyes narrowing as he spoke. "You hesitated. You didn't trust your instincts. You were too busy proving something to everyone else instead of focusing on what you needed." The realization struck T-Bone like a heavy blow. He had been so wrapped up in the notion of winning that he had lost sight of his true purpose. A fighter didn't just endure the fight, he thrived in the experience, drawing strength from every jab and every near miss. "So how do I find that trust in myself?" T-Bone asked, the vulnerability unmistakable in his tone. The challenge ahead wasn't merely learning techniques, it was dismantling layers of self-doubt that had built up since the loss. Trust is built through repetition and reflection. You can't just step into the ring and expect to outsmart your opponent. It's like a dance, you need to know your moves inside and out. That's why you're asking me to talk strategy, not just about brute force. T-Bone began to connect the dots between Jason's words. This wasn't merely a lesson in combat, it was a guide for life outside the ring as well. As he contemplated strategy, T-Bone felt the stirring of something unexpected within him, not just a desire to prepare for a rematch but an eagerness to transform into a better version of himself. Each dialogue was unearthing layers he never thought he would confront. "If it's about fighting smart, where do I start?" T-Bone asked, his tone steady. Jason shifted slightly, clearly recognizing T-Bone's newfound determination. "We'll start with tactical drills, analyzing your previous matches and dissecting your decisions, both right and wrong. This isn't just physical, it's mental conditioning too." The prospect of delving into uncharted territory excited T-Bone. It felt almost therapeutic conversing about his vulnerabilities while simultaneously arming himself with practical tools to tackle them. As their conversation drifted toward specifics, footwork drills, studying footage of past opponents, and mindfulness strategies, T-Bone felt a flicker of hope push past the clouds of self-doubt. Here was not just an opportunity to rise above Jason but to ascend beyond his own history of failures, but just when T-Bone thought he was gaining clarity, Jason added a curveball that shot adrenaline through him. After we finish talking strategy, I'm going to make you fight me again here, right now. No ring, just raw instinct. The proposition sent a shiver down his spine. He was ready to learn, but was he prepared to be tested again so soon? Each pulse echoed that familiar fear, but with an undercurrent of determination that had been absent at their last encounter. Would he be able to step into this immediate challenge and apply the very lessons they were discussing? The question loomed large, heightening his heartbeat, pushing his resolve further into a corner. In that precarious moment, T-Bone faced an undeniable truth. It was time to confront not only his opponent but also the inner battle that had halted him before. Survival did not only lie in outcome but in the pursuit of an inner calling. The air was electric, full of possibility and uncertainty. Would he step up to challenge Jason again, or would this encounter bury him deeper in a cycle of doubt? The stage was set, and the fight was on the brink of becoming something far more significant than either man had anticipated. As he stood to prepare himself, T-Bone realized this was more than another fight. It was a pivotal moment poised to redefine everything he had previously feared. T-Bone's heart raced, adrenaline injecting urgency into his limbs as he squared off against Jason outside the confines of the ring. The cafe buzz faded into an indistinct hum, leaving only the two fighters and the challenge that loomed ahead. Jason's stance was relaxed, eyes narrowed not in irritation but in a focus that bordered on fierce. Remember, the objective isn't just to hit, it's to adapt. Each moment is an opportunity to learn. T-Bone nodded, an internal war raging in his mind. Though he had come to seek knowledge and growth, the sheer intensity of the moment made it clear he was also confronting the specter of his past failures. He could almost hear the echoes of that prior fight, the sense of aimlessness, the paralyzing doubt. But this time, it felt different. He was armed with strategies and insights, and they had to transcend mere theory now. Okay, he breathed out, grounding himself. Let us go. As they circled each other, T-Bone fell into the rhythm of the exercise. Breathing deep, he focused on his surroundings. This was not just an exercise in strength, it demanded mental acuity. Every muscle in his body simmered with potential energy waiting for the right moment to erupt. Jason motioned forward, feigning a jab. Instinctively, T-Bone sidestepped, drawing on the footwork they had discussed moments ago. It felt good. With each movement, nervous energy waned, replaced by an emerging confidence. He was connecting the dots, gaining trust in his instincts. Still, Jason was relentless. He launched quick, probing punches, testing T-Bone's defenses. The strikes were calculated, teaching moments masked as aggression. T-Bone deflected, engaged, and countered, recognizing that this was not merely a physical confrontation but a mental battlefield. Jason's smirk returned, but it now carried an undertone of approval. Better, Jason called out, but don't forget, trust yourself. Listen to your body. Don't just react to me, learn. T-Bone's mind fired, processing each move that Jason made, and for the first time, he felt himself begin to operate within what Jason had called the zone. It was fluid, it was intuitive. Each exchange opened a door in his consciousness, revealing an uncharted territory of self-awareness he had yet to explore. Look for openings, Jason's voice broke his concentration momentarily. You're not just defending, you're finding your rhythm. Before T-Bone could grasp this new concept, Jason unleashed a flurry of punches. Panic surged briefly, and with it came the old, familiar doubt. He hesitated, facing a vital choice: retreat into fear or embrace the teachings. Instead of withdrawing, T-Bone made a decision. He stepped forward, weaving through the chaos, seeking warmth in the uncomfortable. He allowed his insight to inform his actions, recalling their earlier discussions about intention and awareness. His fist struck out, connecting against Jason's side. The thrill was electrifying. T-Bone realized he had not just landed a punch, he had reaffirmed his presence in the fight. A surge of triumph glimmered within as he recalled all the times he'd been caught off guard, every jab he had failed to throw. Nice. Now build on it, don't let that flicker die. Jason challenged. T-Bone surged forward again, this time with more intent. With each combination, it became clearer, his past mistakes were not shackles but stepping stones to something greater. He was not simply sparring, he was transforming, excavating layers of fear to unveil resilience. As they continued to engage, fatigue set in, but it did not quell his momentum. Each time he landed a blow or parried an attack, he felt the shadows of doubt recede further into the background. There were still moments of vulnerability, but more often than not, they were framed by a burgeoning conviction. Then out of nowhere, Jason halted the match. "All right, that's enough for now," he announced, and T-Bone felt breathless. "What did I learn?" he panted, eager for feedback. "More than just moves. You learned to trust yourself. This fight, it was essential. You faced the inner conflict." T-Bone, but Jason eyed him critically. "You haven't faced the biggest lesson yet." A pit formed in T-Bone's stomach. What lay ahead? "Next, we delve into your limits," Jason continued. "Those limits are where you'll discover what truly motivates you, and it's time to confront them head-on." As T-Bone's heart raced again, he felt a strange blend of excitement and fear. What could this new challenge involve? Would he brave another revelation that might stretch him beyond his fragile edges? The stakes were rising, pressing against him with palpable tension. The sun poured through the grimy windows of T-Bone's modest apartment, washing over the dusty floor where he had taken every step on his journey. Determination coursed through him, igniting a fire that had flickered into existence the night of the tournament. That victory, hard-won and brimmed with growth, had not merely changed his status as a fighter but rebirthed his identity. T-Bone stood in front of the mirror again, this time ready to face himself with clarity. He was more than just a janitor, he was a warrior. The journey he had embarked on wasn't merely about martial arts but about conquering the shadows that had held him at bay for far too long. Today marked a turning point. He had determined to shift his perspective and acknowledge not just his achievements but the hard lessons learned along the way. Having set the date for the rematch with Jason, T-Bone felt palpable anticipation mingling with a hint of trepidation. He prepared for this new chapter not just through physical training but also through introspection. He understood that recognizing his limitations was crucial to transcending them. It stirred within him every punch, every conversation, every ounce of sweat had converged into insight richer than the gold medals he sought. As he paced the small living room, the smell of morning coffee wafted through and pulled at his thoughts. He sensed his mother moving around the kitchen, her voice humming to an upbeat tune. A wave of gratitude washed over him for her endless sacrifices. T-Bone realized that his aspirations were now intertwined with the life he had once resented. In the days leading up to the rematch, he engaged in fundamental training but also revisited conversations with Mr. Jenkins. Together, they analyzed previous matches, reinforcing the notion that defeat could serve as fertile soil for growth. T-Bone had begun to relish each encounter with his insecurities, inching toward an understanding that true strength was birthed from vulnerability. The day of the rematch arrived with a fervor that electrified the air around him. T-Bone stepped into the gym, the familiar scent of sweat and polished mats grounding him amidst the swirl of emotions. The energy from the audience buzzed around him, conjuring memories of the previous tournament but layered, now, with profound confidence. He was here not just to face Jason but to solidify the transformation he had ignited within. As the bell rang and the fight commenced, T-Bone approached Jason with an intentionality that solidified his sense of self. There was no hesitation in his movement as they circled each other. He remembered every lesson learned, every moment reclaimed. The truth of his identity crackled like electricity with each exchange of strikes. Jason came at him with vigor, yet T-Bone had discovered the rhythm to the dance. Instead of merely reacting to Jason's punches, he anticipated them, adapting in real time. The insights from their earlier conversation echoed in his mind: trust yourself. Listen to your body. Even in this intense moment, he felt unshackled from the weight of expectation, no longer driven by fear, but powered by the purpose of his journey. With each impact of their fists, he forged a narrative not just for the spectators but for himself. This was his fight not merely to win but to articulate who he had become, an embodiment of resilience redefining defeat. As the match reached its zenith, each connection and movement filled him with an exhilarating blend of focus and clarity. The gradual build of anticipation culminated in a powerful moment, a strike delivered that firmly landed and threw Jason off balance. The gym erupted into a roar, but in that solitary breath, T-Bone understood it wasn't just victory, it was validation. He had not merely conquered his opponent but also the fears that loomed large. As Jason adjusted, a newfound respect woven into their exchanges appeared in his eyes, acknowledging the profound growth he had undergone. When the referee signaled the end, and the victor was declared, the overwhelming sense of achievement coursed through him. T-Bone still heard the cheers around him, but they felt secondary to the narrative he had rewritten. He was no longer defined by his past failures but bolstered by the recognition of strength that came from claiming his story. As he stepped off the mat, he felt the embrace of his mother, who filled him with warmth and pride. Mr. Jenkins stood nearby, nodding in acknowledgement, an unfathomable wellspring of wisdom nestled within him. T-Bone realized that this journey of self-discovery was perpetual, a testament to resilience, growth, and the unwavering pursuit of understanding oneself. Embracing his place, T-Bone knew the real achievement wasn't the title, it was the profound awareness of self-worth he could now carry forwards. He had learned that in the fight of life, the greatest champion was the one who faced their inner battles head-on and walked away transformed. This was not merely an end but the beginning of a journey that he would continue to navigate with purpose, intention, and the unshakable belief that he was meant to fight for every moment, every dream, and hold space for his identity as both fighter and janitor. Now, if you found inspiration in T-Bone's journey or saw a reflection of your battles within his story, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find these motivational tales. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who are struggling and could use a dose of inspiration. This is your chance to make a difference. Don't wait even one more second. Comment below with your theories and reactions. Let's spread this journey together.